Greetings, fellow YouTubers. I am the Viking Barbarian from VikingBarbarian.com, and I come here to Planet Internet in all my unwashed glory to bring you food. Now, on my website, I teach you how to take foods that you would normally find in a high-end restaurant and bring them into your own home and make them from scratch. Here in my web series, I am going to teach you simpler things, delightful things, sinful things, things that will make your taste buds want to stand up and do a can-can across your tongue. Now, why would you want to make these things at home? Well, let's take today's subject, for example. Nope. Well, that's embarrassing. Whose is that? Ah, here we go. Potato chips. Now, let's talk food. There are certain items in your kitchen that will not go bad. They'll get old, they'll get stale, less appealing, maybe a little funky, but they won't go bad to the point where they get you sick. Things like potato chips and honey and pickles absolutely will not go bad, whether by lack of moisture, natural bioseptic properties, or high acid content. They simply cannot harbor bacteria which are required for the development of foodborne illness. That being said, there's absolutely nothing better than a homemade chip. It is leaps and bounds better than a store-bought one. If you bargain shop, you can get a bag of potatoes for roughly the cost of air. Now, a brief word on equipment. It is possible to cut potato chips with one of these, but it's a painstaking process because you have to go very slow and make sure that you're cutting them perfectly thin. You could also use one of these. This is a mechanical chopper, and a lot of them come with julienne blades like this, but if you look closely, the blade separation is very thick, so you're going to have some pretty heavy potatoes that aren't going to crisp up the way you want them to. I highly recommend that you get one of these. This is a mandolin slicer, and if you look closely, you can see the blade separation is very thin. This is an instrument perfectly suited to cutting potato chips. In addition to the mandolin, you'll need one of these, a high-sided container with a relatively narrow mouth. That way, you can lay your mandolin right on top and go to town on your spuds. And as you can see, I've filled it partially up with water. This is going to help clean the potatoes and wash off excess starch. You're also going to need one of these. That's my daughter's. What you'll need is one of these, a potato. I would stay away from the waxy potatoes, which are the reds. This is a russet, has brown skin. You can also use Yukon Gold, it has more yellow skin. These are mealy potatoes. They're ideal for frying and mashing. The waxy potatoes are more for roasting and grilling. Over here at the stove, we have the last few items we need to make our potato chips. Over here we have two saucepans. Each has 1 to 2 inches of cooking oil in it. This one, the oil is at 350 degrees. This one, the oil is at 300 degrees. These temperatures have to be exact, or our potato chips are going to crinkle up and turn brown like a spider on a bad acid trip. The next thing you'll need is one of these. This is a candy thermometer. It differs from a normal thermometer for food in that it measures temperatures at a much higher level. Where a normal thermometer stops at about 180 degrees, this one will go up to 400 degrees, and we need to go much higher than 180 degrees in our oil. You'll also want to get a wire rack like this. This is where we're going to rest our potato chips to cool and lose the oil. You'll just set this in a shallow pan and let the oil drip down and let them dry before we put our seasoning on them. Now that we have all our equipment together, we're ready to start cutting. As I told you before, we have a high-sided container filled about halfway to 2/3 with water. This is going to help to clean the potatoes and also to wash off excess starch. We want some starch because that's what protects the potato from becoming saturated with the oil. But too much starch and it'll brown too quickly and you'll have dark brown potato chips that are still flibbity-flobbity. So as I told you before, we place our mandolin right on top, grab our potato. When you start off, you'll want to have a good grip on the potato. But as you move higher, you're going to want to get your fingers out of the way so that you don't cut them. So we'll just plant it right here and just start moving back and forth. And the mandolin will do all the work for us. Now, through the magic of the mystical land of YouTube, we have a full container of potatoes. And now what we're going to do is we're going to drain off the water and then refill it. And then we'll drain it again. And refill it one more time. Again, this is to wash off the excess starch and to clean the potatoes. And now we're going to take these over by the stove. Okay, we're back over here by the stove, and what I've done is I've taken the chips and I've drained them into a colander setting on top of another vessel. And here we have our 300-degree oil, and here we have our 350-degree oil. And over here we have our wire rack. And I strongly recommend you get one of these for pulling them out of the oil. It makes it a whole lot easier than doing it with a slotted spoon. So, we're going to do this about a handful at a time. And we're just going to drop them into the first. And we're going to want to fry these for about between 1 and 2 minutes in the oil. And then we're going to take them out, let them cool, and then we're going to put them into the other oil for 1 to 2 minutes. The reason for this is that if you just do 350 or 400 degree oil, they're going to brown too fast and they're still going to be a little bit chewy in the center. By doing them this way, we're getting them cooked all the way through and we're cooking them at a more even rate. Okay, so at this point I have taken them out of the cooler oil and I placed them on wire rack to cool. They have begun to cook and crisp up a little bit, but they're not quite there yet. That's what the hotter oil is for. So we take them and we drop them into the hotter oil. And we're going to cook them for 1 to 2 minutes in here to crisp them up, get that nice starchy browning going. And you can tell that this oil is much hotter because they almost immediately start to completely crisp. Okay, at this point I've taken them out of the second pan of oil and I've dried them on the rack and I've placed them into a mixing bowl such as this. And now all we have to do is place a seasoning on it. This particular seasoning is a seasoning that I made myself. It's basically all the spices you would put into a ranch dip. There will be a series of cards with recipes on them, ideas for what flavors you can try, but this is the one I'm trying today. And now we have a big old bowl of homemade potato chips, and we didn't have to go to the store to get them. So that is all there is to it. And until next time, please subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can be notified when I put up another video, which I hope will be in the next week or so. You can also follow me on Twitter and Google+, and very soon Facebook. Until then, just remember, when you're going to eat something, do it right. If you don't look like a rabid velociraptor, you're not doing it right. So until I see you next time, this is the Viking Barbarian saying, feed the beast.